Cheers everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the Beginner's Guide to Coil Building. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a dual nickel build in the velocity clone that I have here. Now, one of the hardest things with nickel is building dual coils, and the reason is because it's so hard to build a dual coil with high enough resistance that it vapes or will even run on a temp control mod. Again, I do want to say that the most important thing with temp control is do not use nickel wire on a wattage only device. You have to use it on a temp control device. Please take your safety seriously. Do not use nickel on anything except a temp control device. And with that said, do not use nickel on a temp control device in any mode other than temp control. You know, just because you put it on a temp control device, it's not going to do you any good if you put it in wattage mode. You're looking to, you could do some damage to yourself. Nobody wants to see that. I'm here to help you, not to hurt you. And so, again though, if you're not comfortable with nickel, hey, go check out one of my other videos. The next episode, episode 5, is going to be how to build your first clamping coil. It's all Canthal, no nickel, and that's the point of this series, bringing you from noob to confident coil building. That's the idea. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing dual coils around a 3mm jig, and we're going to be doing 14.5 wraps per side. And the reason we have to put so many wraps is because we need the resistance to be high enough that it vapes properly on the device. 14.5 wraps, it seems like a lot, and again, those are spaced wraps because we're not going to do any micro coils with nickel. We're not going to do any coils that are touching because we can't fire it to remove hot spots. I'm not going to suggest that anybody do that. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I suggest that you do not do that. Do not, pick up a mech mod and fire a nickel coil to remove hot spots and pinch it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. But with that said, nickel is about how comfortable you are. And actually, P. Basardo said it best. The safest way to vape is to not vape at all. But considering that if I wasn't vaping, I'd be smoking cigarettes, damn fuck, I'm going to fucking vape. I don't want to smoke cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for 36 years at a pack and a half a day. I don't want to do it anymore. And ever since I picked up my first device, within 3 days, I haven't had a cigarette since. So, keep off the stinkies, vape on. Let's head over to the workbench and let's get this one belted out. Cheers. Cheers and welcome to the build portion of our velocity clone. Again, this is the beginner's guide, so we're going to try to keep it simple. Now, this is sort of beginner's guide. I'm not sure which episode. Anyway, I can't remember what episode we're on. I believe 3 or 4. This would be, yes, episode 4. And what we're going to do today is we're going to put a nickel build in this velocity clone. And the reason we're doing that, of course, is because we want to use this on temperature control. Again, this needs to be said. I know I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. Do not, I repeat, do not use nickel wire on any device that is not temp control. And with that said, do not use it in any setting other than temp control. Do not use a temp control device on power mode with a nickel build. It's not safe, and that's all I'm going to say. It's not safe. Do not do it. Alright, so here we go. What are we going to build today? Well, the point of this series is to keep it easy. So,
that was easy.
That's the plan. Let's see if we can accomplish that. So, velocity deck, 2 posts, 2 coils, nickel wire. I'm going to be using my 28 gauge, and what we're going to be trying for is 14 wraps per side. Now, I know you're thinking that's a pretty big coil, but what essentially we're going to do is we're going to do 14 wraps a side, and we're going to have 2 spaced coils with 14 wraps. And we're going to hope that that provides a really nice temp control vape with this dripping atomizer. I'm going to space it out. Nickel wire is pretty soft. It's pretty easy to manipulate. I do want to try to get this evenly spaced, so while it's still on my coil master, I'm just going to pull it out some, space out that coil, double check how many wraps I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and there's 15. The reason I want 15 is I'm going to pull one out when I'm done. Whichever side's ugliest is where I'll pull one wrap out of. Alright, now I'm going to put my cap back on, and as you can see, it's a pretty spaced coil. We don't want it that big. I'm just going to push it down to make it more uniform. So if I pull this off now, and you have a look at this, again, it's not going to be perfect just now, but I do want you to see that you can actually get a pretty nice spaced coil. So I'm going to put it back on my rod, and I'm going to pull one wrap out, leaving me with 14. Technically, when the leads go the same way, that's a half. So this is actually going to be 14.5 wraps. Legs going both the same way. 14.5 wraps. I'm going to cut the other lead, and there you go. There's one coil completed. 14.5 wraps. 28 gauge nickel around a 3mm jig. I'm hoping that looks nice. Coil number 2. Always push it over with your finger to get it started. Again, if you don't have a coil master, I mean, you can wrap this around a screwdriver or 3mm, you know, some drill bit that comes out at 3mm, you know, whatever you have, whatever works for you. But, you know, if you do follow this, you should get a wonderful, good vape, just like I'm going to show you when we get back to the lounge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, there, I'm going to show you errors because I'm a noob and you're a noob. This is not working. As you can see, my coil is wrapping over itself, which is a complete waste. But I do know an easy way to fix this. Basically, it's to start again. So this wire is a little bit stretched out and funky now, but all I'm going to do, is that's why I have such a long piece, is I'm just going to pull it a little bit through and kind of just start it again. And hopefully we'll get this wire to behave better. There's a reason a lot of people don't like working with nickel. You have to have very little pressure from the cap towards the base, because you don't want to be pushing on the wire because it will want to overwrap itself. You don't want that. You want each wrap to be its own individual wrap, you know, next to the one prior to it. So here we go. We're going to try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I'm going to point it the same way, so it's 15.5. I should have done that the first time, but I only took a half wrap out instead of a full. But this time I'm doing 15.5, because what I want to do is both the legs are going the same way at this point. In fact, I'm going to trim this down a bit because I don't need so much wire. So let me get rid of that first part that we bent all the shit out of. And drop the coil. And essentially I'm going to put it back on my jig. Both leads are going the same way. We have 15.5 wraps on here. I'm going to put it in close to the base, and now I'm going to space it out, just like I did with the first one. Get a nice big spacing, because what's going to happen is we're going to knock it all back into uniformity. We're going to squish it back down, just like we did the first one. Just like that. And now what we're going to do is, since both leads are still going the same way, we're going to put this back on, and we're going to pull one out, one full wrap off of this coil. And I'm going to choose to do that on this side. So again, I'm just going to pull it until they face the same way again. Voila. There we go. So, let's have a look at this and see how we did. It looks a little funky on the end. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because it's touching. Maybe it overwrapped, but we're going to find out, because we're also going to fix it. Yeah, I think it may have been overwrapping one of the other, the wrap or the before it. So we're going to fix that by actually stretching it out again a little bit, just a little bit, and then we're going to again put our cap on and just try to get it back into some type of uniform shape, so that all those wraps are approximately the same size. Now that looks a lot better. Now again, that might not be perfect, but the important thing is that we have two spaced nickel coils that we're going to be able to, there we go, there's a good view. We're going to be able to mount these in our velocity and temp control the shit out of this RDA. So there we go. Two coils. Let's get this built. One lead in the bottom hole, one lead in the top hole. I'm going to basically put the coil into the position I want it to be. I don't want it to be perfect. I just kind of want it to where I'm going to want it when it's done. A rough idea, I do want it kind of close to the posts, but I also want to have enough room to maneuver it, to, you know, manipulate that coil, put it where I want it to be. The important thing to remember with nickel, do not over tighten your grub screws. If you over tighten this, you are going to snap that lead and thus have to rebuild your coil, especially if you're building it so close to the posts. Either that, or you're going to have to pull a wrap off, and that's going to change what resistance you were shooting for. So be very careful. You do want a solid connection with the grub screws, but you do not want them to cut through that lead in any way. You want to be in control and cut the leads off from the other side. You don't want the grub screw doing the work for you. It's not going to be what you want. So again, they got to be snug, but not too tight. That's good. I feel comfortable with that. I'm going to now trim my leads. The great thing about nickel is it's so soft, you don't really have to worry about it jumping or skipping across the table like Kanthal. It won't go flying. Alright, next coil. Now this one I did a little bit better in keeping the legs separate lengths, so this should be a lot easier. Again, one side in the bottom, and you do want to make sure though that you're not hitting your other coil on the other way. So I do tend to bend my leads a little bit so that as I put it through, the other way is you could bend the coil out of your way, but I don't think you need to do that. The velocity deck is very forgiving when placing coils. So again, same thing. Put the coil in, put it close to the post, and tighten my grub screws. Again, not too tight, but definitely trapping those leads. Again, as you can see, if you watch my Ivogo velocity review, you'll understand what I'm explaining to you here. The grub screws are stripped on some of these, so they do tend to spin sometimes. Or this, you can't pull them out because the Allen key is turned halfway, so that sucks. But you know, I'm working with what I have. All right, there we go. I feel that's pretty secure. The other side's secure. I'm going to trim my leads. And now I'm going to take my Coil Master rod, put it back in, and the easiest way to do this, actually, you know what, I'm not even going to, the easiest way to do it with the Coil Master would be to take the rod out. I'm actually going to use my mandrel. This is another wonderful tool. I got this at my local vape shop for like $8, $7. It's a great tool for this. And all I want to do is get my coil spaced out, kind of positioning it, putting it where I want it to be. Like I say, I do want to kind of keep it close to the posts. That's how I like my coils. I know some people like them lower. With this velocity deck, I mean, you can do it either way. You have the whole area to work with. In fact, let's shoot for a middle position. That's where they're going to be probably the best, right in front of the Cyclops, or with the Cyclops, air can get just underneath of it. And in the middle, I believe they have the best chance of making good airflow with the circular airflow rings that are on the outside. So this one is in a little tighter than I want it to be, so I will pull it out a little bit. Oh, that's looking pretty good. And there you go. Let this silly camera focus. And there you can see 2 coils in the velocity. Nickels, they're 14.5 wraps each. Of course, this is nickel. We are not going to dry fire this, hence the spaced coils are a must. And the only thing I would suggest you do with nickel, spaced coils. Good. We're going to wick this up now. I do know that a lot of you folks use the pads of cotton, so that's what I'm actually going to use. I prefer cotton bacon, but I want to give you guys the best experience that I can, the closest to what you're going to have. And so we're going to take some of this and wick our RDA, our velocity. Now I'm cutting a piece that's probably, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/3 of an inch wide. I'm not sure, but you'll get a feel for it. If you take a piece that's too big, as you go to put it through the coil, you'll have too much resistance and you'll realize that you've got to make it smaller. If it's too small, your choice for size of cotton, you'll notice that as you're trying to pull it through, it's way too loose. And you'll need to go cut another piece. Now I do like to remove that tougher outer skin from both sides of the cotton. That's a preference thing. Some people like to leave it on. I prefer to remove it. And we're just going to roll this up a little bit in our hands and feel what that's like. Now again, this is really important. It's a nickel coil. It's a very soft wire. If I go to put this in and it's too tight and I start wrestling with it, I'm going to bend the fuck out of that coil and basically have to redo it. So that is something you do not want to do. So be very gentle in putting your cotton in. I'm going to twist one end up pretty tight to get it going into the coil. But as I go to pull it through, I will twist it on this end. because like I say, I don't want it pulling the coil. Now that's fitting through there nice, as you can see. I'm hoping that you can see that I'm actually not moving the coil whatsoever. That cotton is just going through there nice. Now it is nice and snug, it feels really good. And how much cotton I want to leave is I just want to leave enough so that it goes down and touches the deck. Now the Velocity clone that I have has a pretty deep juice well, so I do want those pieces a little bit long. And what I'm really hoping to be able to do is use this piece for the other side, because I'm cheap. And I know that the size of this cotton is perfect. That's the other part of it. So there, yeah, I think I did well. I will need to have to untwist this side a bit, but I'm also going to trim it. There we go. Right, I'm going to fluff the cotton a little bit, kind of get it a little bit opened up. I don't want it so tight. You know, so I'm just going to, especially with this one, because this is the one that I twisted to be my lead end, to thread the needle. Alright, now people call this a Scottish roll. I don't know, you know, hey, kudos to the Scots. I mean, I'm half Scottish myself. My father was Scottish, my stepfather was Scottish for that matter. I was born in Canada, I am a Canadian, true and true. But the one thing that I have learned from the Scottish roll is I do prefer my cotton to just come down and sit on the deck, as opposed to being stuffed under and being a cloud of cotton underneath. I realize that you don't actually need that, and I find it wicks very well using this method. So here we go. We're just going to take this each side, tuck it down, and we want it kind of straight. We don't want it to go everywhere, all over the place. We just want each side of this cotton to go down, sit in the deck, and then take up very little room on the deck. That's what we want. That's what we're going for. We don't want the deck stuffed with cotton. All right? I want that juice well to be stuffed with juice. Now I know cotton holds juice, but I want it just to be juice. The juice then can go to the cotton that needs it the most, the driest one. If there was big clouds under there, you may get one side not heating up as much or not wicking as well as the other side. I find, personally, that this way works best for that. And you don't need a lot of cotton. You don't need to overdo it. You just need enough in there so that each coil has its own wick going right to the deck. Because as you drip juice in between there from the top, it's going to sit in that juice well and then touch the tips of those cotton and get sucked up to the coil. There you go. Let's juice it up and let's see how she fires. First I'm just going to paint a little bit on the coils themselves, and then I'm going to just put a shitload in the juice well. I do want it to suck it up through the wicks. I'm anal that way. Again, I'll put some more on the coil itself, let it soak in. I'm going to give this a test hit. Okay, I'm going to put some more juice in. I'm going to set my airflow. I like it actually very tight. That's my preference. The great thing about the Velocity is you have so many options for airflow. Again, if you don't know about the Velocity, when you put the cap on, turn it till it clicks into place right there. And now I know that thing is set, that it's not going anywhere. I'm going to use my chuff cap. Let's see if we can hit that shit. Well, that's a nice vape right there. I think we got a winner. All right. As my friend Dirty would say, it's hitting like a truckload of dicks. For me. And video number 4 in the series, nickel build on the Velocity Clone by Ivogo.
That was easy.
Let's move back over to the lounge and I'll give you my final thoughts on the build. We'll talk more about the resistance, how it changes, things that can happen, and we'll wrap this video up. Cheers. Hey, welcome back to the lounge. So hopefully that wasn't too mind-numbing for you or boring. It may have been. But anyway, let's see. We did manage to come out at 0.08 ohms. I'm hitting this at 520 watts. And this is a beautiful vape. I mean, temp control isn't for everybody. Me personally, I love it. I really like the vape I get from Temp Control from Nickel. I know a lot of people out there are going to tell you different, but you know what? Here's my suggestion. Try it. If you like it, do it. If you don't like it, don't do it. I don't suggest that you need to do this. I wouldn't suggest that if you feel uncomfortable with nickel that you do this. But if it's something that you just, you're comfortable doing, that's how I feel. I'm comfortable with nickel. I like to make spaced coils. I don't have any problems with hot spots. I typically come in at an ohm rating around where I want, and I get really nice vapes. And I really enjoy the flavor, and I really enjoy the vapor. So, it's a very satisfying vape. And whatever keeps me off of cigarettes is, it's really all that matters. So, let's wrap up episode 4. And I hope you got something out of that, and I hope you enjoy. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out Facebook group, Kanger Subtank users, as well as myvaporium.net. Great bunch of people, great bunch of guys. Learn a lot of stuff from them, and until the next episode, cheers, and vape safe.